Ashay, it is good. To know who you are, that's where true wholeness begins. Self-love is the foundation of that journey. We are ancestral genius, born from brilliance that built civilizations. We build strong children first, because culture is living power. When we remember, we rise again. From self-knowledge to cultural pride, from accountability to community, this is the power to create, uplift, and transform. Help us bring the Ashay program back into our schools and restore the power within our children.
We have no reason to kill our brother when our brother is basically ourselves. The Ashay program has definitely helped me with knowing my true history. It helped me recognize that being black is more than what the eye can see.
Frederick Douglass said it best. It is easier to build strong children than repair broken men.
The journey of self-knowledge is what we began when they were in middle school. And that journey should be one that we're all on. And the sooner I think that young people can start that journey, then the better able we are, I think, to say that we've achieved much of what Douglass said. You know, we've built stronger children so that we don't have to fix the adults later.
Bermuda is at a crossroads. On one side is the crisis, rising violence, fractured identity, and young people adrift in a world that often doesn't affirm who they are. On the other side is promise, the possibility of renewal, cultural grounding, and the building of a new generation with confidence, pride, and purpose. At the heart of this conversation is the Ashay program.
So I very luckily took Ashay when I was at Delwood in 2007, 2008. And then my younger sister, Katrina, got to experience some of it, not Ashay, unfortunately, because they had stopped it, but when she was at Berkeley with Miss Dill.
I am Dr. Jeanette Musson, and I was the principal of Delwood Middle School a little over, 15 years ago, and 20 plus years ago, I had my first encounter with Ashay.
My name is Curly Simons Deal. My relationship, I've been with Ashay ever since I was about 4 years old.
My name is Nelson Ruas Ferreira, and I have been a part of Ashay for about 2 years now. I started in M3, I believe, and once I joined, I met some amazing people.
My name is Itana Hilda Blinch. One thing we've learned in Ashay is the 7 principles of Ma'at, which are truth, justice, righteousness, harmony, balance, order, and reciprocity.
If we are going to make the necessary shift to save, grow, and empower our young people, Black boys in particular, we need to start in primary school by teaching them who they are. When you know who you are, you know who your ancestors are, you know what you are capable of. You know that you have their genius in your DNA.
Because if we were able to make such great, massive empires with our people, then what's stopping us now from making great, massive communities in the modern day?
Ashay, Rites of Passage, a program once in our schools. Ashay gave our young people something priceless, the tools of self-love, wholeness, cultural pride, and community responsibility. It taught not just who they are, but whose they are. Children of heritage, of family, of purpose. And yet, in 2008, it was cut. The budget said no, even as the need kept saying yes.
I would say it should be reinstated, mainly because it does help people become better. Like they help them better oneself, as well as they learn more about themselves and who they are as a person.
And to have that taken from them when there is so much racial divide in the world, not just Bermuda, for it to be taken from our Black children, also from our white children who can then appreciate their Black brothers and sisters. It was devastating to me because I saw how it empowered my daughter to be a better citizen. A bit of the history of the battle to keep Ashay in the schools is I wrote emails to everyone that could keep it in the schools. I had a town hall meeting at the Delwood Middle School. We had PS, we had ministers, we had government officials attend, and it got nowhere.
Ashay, Rites of Passage, was designed to provide global Pan-African perspective complementary to the middle school social studies curriculum. It also shared universal values clothed in our beautiful African fabric. Dubbed character education, it was enthusiastically embraced by Delwood Middle School in the heart of North Hamilton.
When I think back, I could see changes and observe them in the school climate, the way students responded to one another, the way they responded to teachers, the way they attacked their work and their attitudes to learning. We were just a more peaceful, more productive, and I would say generally a much happier learning environment at Delwood over those 5 years.
I want this country to heal. I want our young people to heal. And the only way to do that is to have a program that shows them their worth, shows them their genius.
So why do we need Ashay back in our schools? To strengthen and empower our kids around their self-identity, pride in self, pride in Bermuda, pride in who they are as individuals and their nationality. That's what we need. That's what we're lacking. We need to rebuild community and rebuild relationship. And that's exactly what Ashay will do for our students.
It was a shame that it was left. I know of adults who still remember their time as Ashay students. I have past students who still remember their time with me in the Ashay clubs as an Ashay baby. And it is imperative that we bring this sort of education back into our schools. We are more than just what people think we're supposed to be. And having a program like Ashay reminds us of that, because I feel like it's somewhere in us anyway. And to have that reminder, we know we're going to succeed no matter what.
If I could just ask everyone that's watching this right now to just go to change.org and go to the petition, Bring Ashay Back. If you sign it, then you are part of the solution to the pain that our children are in our community.
For years, the Ashay program gave our children that power, teaching self-love, wholeness, pride, and purpose. It built strong minds, kind hearts, and confident young leaders. But when Ashay was removed from our schools, something vital went missing. A generation lost a mirror to see their own greatness. Now, it's time to bring it back. Join thousands of Bermudians standing for our youth. Sign the petition at change.org and help us reach 10,000 voices strong to restore the program that restores our children. Because when they know who they are, they rise. Ashay, it is good.
Our young people need several paths to wholeness, and the Ashay program is one of them.
Students from every possible walk of life in terms of their socioeconomic group, students from different ethnic groups, students who were coming from homes where families were broken, and students who came from homes where families were whole, all came together once a week to learn about themselves, to learn about their history, to learn about the history of African people, and to learn that they too, all of them, could look at the history and learn from the values and take those things with them to strengthen who they were and who they could be.
It should be put back in schools because I think that not just Black people or Black children need to know about history before these now. I think that it's much more than what modern day school history is about. I feel like if more kids knew about what happened in like the prehistory, then it would definitely help out our community a lot more.
I would really, really push back against the idea that just because it is teaching like African history, that means it's only for Black people. Like, I would vehemently push back against that idea, because if all of my my fellow students who are Black have to learn about like English history and American history and French and Spain and all of that, like, then we should be learning about African history as well, because it's just as relevant. And it's really unfortunate that that history is not put on center stage as much as it could be. A lot of places teach African, like Black history, starting with the transatlantic slave trade and nothing else.
Before my oldest daughter, Waverly, did the program at Delwood, I knew such a small amount of the history that was to come out of Africa. And when she would come home and she would talk about, oh, Mommy, I learned about this, and I learned about this way of being and about this way of thinking about things, she was excited, which then had me be excited. Because she was like, all we ever hear about is what the white man did. We didn't hear about what Black people have done for our history and all of the geniuses that they were, and she became excited about it. And she then, you know, took up in her own way in middle school, not allowing people to disregard any of her friends just because of the color of their skin.
I was the only white male in my group, and to know that I can be welcomed into a Black community as well as Black history, introduced to all of that, is really a blessing towards me, because I enjoy learning Black history and just learning about people that are diverse to me.
When we were informed that the Ashay program would not continue, I immediately felt extremely devastated for our children and for our community.
When I was approached about the pilot in Ashay, I knew nothing about Ashay, and I thought, well, at least I need to find out more to see whether or not there's something here that we can all benefit from. And so I met with the creator of the program, and we sat down and we talked about the curriculum, we talked about the objectives, we talked about how it could possibly impact our students at Delwood. And I thought, wow, this looks like a gift that I cannot turn away from. And it may help us to get our young people to really pay attention to who they are, their value, their potential, and possibly see their future in a different way. So we took a leap of faith and we implemented the program that fall, the following fall, in 2003. And it was placed on every student's timetable. Once a week, they had a class in the Ashay program. And I have, to this day, And I look back on it, absolutely no regrets.
So what I notice a lot with my friends is that they're not too sure about what's going on before slavery. And I think that it's really important that not just myself, but my friends and my community knows about what's going on, since it impacts us more than they realize.
One of the things that I've noticed in terms of how it's benefited the boys in the program is that these young men who have traditionally had conflicts with one another, they don't see themselves in one another. They see their differences. And so what I found with the Ashay program is that over the past 4 or 5 years in particular, we have not experienced any real conflicts in school with these young men who live on different areas of the island. And so that's telling me that what's happening is that there's a connection or a bond that's being made between the young men, where they do in fact start seeing their commonalities and not the differences. And so that's brought a lot of peace around the community, the school community that is. It's also helped our young men in the wider society, where many times some of our young men have been, as they call, been caught out of their neighborhood. And they may find themselves in a different neighborhood with some young men who they may be having conflicts with. And many times over the past several years, some of my young men have told me that if it wasn't for so-and-so who are in the MILE program with them, that they may have been beaten up, jumped on, and assaulted in some way. And so that lets me know as well that the young men now are looking out for one another, and that they have established a common bond, which is really what the program is all about.
Almost 10,000 voices have signed a petition calling for Ashay's return, because the people know prevention is more powerful than punishment. We spend millions bringing murderers to justice, but how much do we spend preventing the murders in the first place? If we can invest in police and prisons, surely we can invest in the hearts and minds of our children.
When you build a community around cultural identity, around authenticity, that is kind of insurance for young people, so that they are a part of a real live community of people who they can trust, who they know, and who they can assume have their best interests at play. And that is really what Ashay curriculum and Ashay community is about. And I think that now more than ever, with all of the toxic negativity around us, we need community, and learning about our history and our ancestors and the struggles that they've overcome gives us a sense of courage and a sense of hopefulness that is hard to find these days. And so I appreciate Ashay University and Ashay curriculum for that purpose particularly. It builds hope. Because you learn about the past and you then have hope for the future.
I encourage you to support the Ashay program, support the work being done by Sister Melodye and her team, and make sure that more of our young people get exposed to this exciting, fulfilling, enriching program.
For years, the Ashay program gave our children that power, teaching self-love, wholeness, pride, and purpose. It built strong minds, kind hearts, and confident young leaders. But when Ashay was removed from our schools, something vital went missing. A generation lost a mirror to see their own greatness. Now, it's time to bring it back. Join thousands of Bermudians standing for our youth. Sign the petition at change.org and help us reach 10,000 voices strong to restore the program that restores our children. Because when they know who they are, they rise. Ashay, it is good.
My name is Takara Dill, and I began my Ashay journey first as a parent. My son was an Ashay baby, and from there it encouraged me to join the Ashay community myself as a student with Ashay University. And then I became a Kafra Dada. And from there, I went on to become a facilitator as my son continued to matriculate up into the Ashay Junior Youth Program. So I've been with Ashay for quite a while.
My name is Anthony Ball. I'm an educational therapist at the Barclay Institute. I've been a Ashay facilitator for the past, I would say 10 years now, both at Barclay, and my wife and myself, we're both conducting our own Ashay Junior Youth Program currently.
Yes, I am Cheryl Peak Ball. I am not a historian or a teacher. I'm a public health physician, and my relationship to Ashay goes way back. I have used Ashay content as well as all of its philosophy and its principles to inspire not just spiritual empowerment, but a cultural identity and a sense of understanding who we are in the context of the world today.
The kind of material and the kind of content that is in the Ashay program helps young people to look back, to see that their ancestry, that all of our ancestry is built on the backs, if you like, or the achievements of people who were amazing, who were strong, who developed so much that civilization now takes for granted. And so when they realize that, when they see that in fact we all originated in Africa, and wow, look what the Africans had accomplished way back then in the early days and since. And therefore they had a responsibility to their ancestors and to that history to not only do things that would make them proud and make their parents proud and make the community proud, but they also had a responsibility to kind of pay that forward, to move the ball along, to build community, to create, and to achieve. And they realized, many of them started to realize that they weren't doing that they were maybe wasting their time doing some things they didn't need to be doing. And some of them realized that before they left middle school. Some, from what I'm understanding, didn't realize that until they were adults. But realizing it is the important thing.
I found Ashay to be something that is absolutely valuable. It is community building. It is self-empowering for every student, not just Black students, but all students can see themselves reflected in this program. Especially now, we find that there's so much of a disconnect, and this has been so essential to empowering the lives of students of every age and making sure that they support each other and they see themselves reflected in any sort of curriculum. In my experience, when a student sees themselves in a curriculum, they're more attached to what they're learning, they're more entitled to being driven to succeed, they are more empowered to become who they are and own who they are as an individual and as a part of a bigger community. And I've seen that firsthand. And so to have that as an integral part of any school system, not just public school, is beneficial to Bermuda as a whole.
Perspective is everything. And so Ashay curriculum injects an Afrocentric perspective. And as a person of African ancestry and in a community that is predominantly African ancestry, I feel there is something missing when we don't allow that perspective to be a normal part of our history and our storytelling. And so that, I think, is unique about Ashay. It reaches back into the ancient history and puts the sound bites of history that we sometimes learn and think that's the end of the story, puts it in its proper perspective.
At the Barclay Institute, I run a program there called the MILE program, Mentoring, Inspiring, Leading, and Empowering. And the young men who are part of the MILE program are young men who have found themselves caught up in antisocial behavior, perhaps a lot of gang activities, etc. And so my purpose in having the MILE program is to get our young Black men to understand that they have far more in common than differences. And so what we do is we focus on the 4 Ashay objectives. You are valuable and have genius. Your history and culture are sources of knowledge with lessons to be learned. You must grow your character in order to have a successful life, and the world is waiting for you to contribute your gifts and talents. And the other part of the delivery of the Ashay program to the MILE students is the principles of Ma'at.
Cultural relevance is everything. It helps to inform who we are. It helps us to learn.
Right now with the Ashay clubs, people can take them if they're interested. My feeling is that the Ashay principles needs to be a part of the curriculum.
They have to see themselves in the material. And for me, the fact that a country like Bermuda would need to have a reason to include culturally relevant content into its schools is baffling.
I would say it impacted my life quite a bit, but in a positive way. Before Ashay, I was very shy and timid, and I was scared to speak up for myself and to talk to other people, really. And once I got into Ashay, I felt very much more accepted and cared for. And I got to make a lot of new friends I wouldn't have talked to in real life, realistically, since we're in different social groups. But it felt nice getting to come together at the end of the day and talk and laugh with each other, like we've known each other for our entire lives.
Education is one of the strongest methods of change in the world. And while putting Ashay back into the schools is not going to fix all of the issues in Bermuda, it is definitely a massive step in the right direction. Having a class that prioritizes, highlights, and uplifts young people can go a long, long way to making a meaningful difference in the future of the island. Today's youth have value and have genius. Their history and culture are sources of knowledge with lessons to be learned. They have to develop their character in order to have a successful life. The world is waiting for them to contribute their gifts and talents, and they deserve a class that teaches and reminds them of that.
I believe that it should start on the elementary school level. I think the early intervention is key. And as I was saying, I do it with the older students at my school. They're basically between the ages of 14 and 18 years of age. By then, they're pretty much set in their mindset, the way they see and do things, how they perceive the world. But I think that the earlier that a child gets introduced to the Ashay principles, the better. Better in the sense that they start to internalize it more. They start to realize their own inherent value as a Black person. They start to realize that, Black people, our life is more than just about slavery, that a lot of the inventions that we know of today originated in Africa, right? And that civilization began in Africa. And so these are just some of the most common basic knowledge things that I think all students, certainly Black students, need to know about in order to be raised to be healthy.
During my time as the host of the Sherry Simmons Show on Magic 102.7 FM, I had the privilege of sitting with Melodye Micere Van Putten, the visionary behind the Ashay program. And I listened. I listened to teachers, to parents, and to the children themselves. Children who had been transformed by the Ashay program. And you know what I heard over and over again? That Ashay gives confidence, that Ashay brings pride, that Ashay roots our children in identity and lifts them into possibility. This is why we must bring the Ashay program back into our public schools. Because every child deserves to know where they come from so they can grow into who they are meant to be. Ashay is not just a program, it is a foundation. And when our children are grounded in their history, they walk taller, they dream bigger, they achieve more. Ashay works. It plants resilience, hope, and unity. And if we want a more powerful Bermuda tomorrow, then we must water those roots today. Ashay is not just a program. It is an investment in Bermuda's children and our future.
It's benefited me through being able to know my history and know the significance about how my history went on before what was being taught in schools.
Ashay means it is good, and indeed it is good to teach young people who they are and whose they are. The crisis is real, but so too is the promise. The question for Bermuda now is whether we have the vision, the compassion, and will seize the moment. Hotep Ashay.